this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for this devotional. As many of you know, we're just reading through a book of the Bible at a time. Right now, we're in the book of Galatians. We happen to be in chapter 2. I'm going to read verses 11 through 13. Paul says, "But when Cephas, or Peter, came to Antioch, which is Paul's home church, I, Paul, opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles, but when they came, he drew back and separated himself, fearing the circumcision party. And the rest of the Jews acted hypocritically along with him, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy." So I think we need a little backstory here just to have context. Paul and Peter had ministry to two different groups of people. Paul focused on sharing the gospel with outsiders, who in their day were called Gentiles. And Peter focused on sharing the gospel with insiders, or Jews. But this new ministry to outsiders, or Gentiles, created some friction and tension in the church. And one place where there was lots of tension surrounded the requirements for salvation, namely one of the oldest rites for Jews instituted by God to Abraham, which was circumcision. And this created so much debate that Paul and some of his ministry buds had to make a trip to Jerusalem to debate the matter, which was Peter's home church. Now, the requirement of circumcision was this really heated debate, and there were passionate people on either side of the argument. But after a long debate, Peter concluded that outsiders, or Gentiles, shouldn't be troubled with the matter of circumcision. And because of Peter's stature and apostleship and leadership in the church, you'd think this would have killed that debate, but it didn't, because there was still kind of this looming opposition happening in the background. And it appears that in the future, Peter came to Antioch. Now, Antioch was Paul's ordaining church and the sending church for all three of his missionary trips. And Antioch had become known as one of the most prominent churches in the Christian world. And of course, as you would suppose, it hosted a large gathering of Gentile believers. Now, during some point where Peter was visiting, there was a meal, maybe he had out with a big group of people, and there were Gentile Christians who were there. But instead of joining them, Peter pulls away from that group. He disassociates with them, which was, by the way, formerly a practice for Jews. They were forbidden from associating with Gentiles. But when Peter does this, he's exposed because he pulled away because there was a group of people present who were of the circumcision required party, led by a man named James. And this little drama exposes Peter. While Peter endorsed the gospel to the Gentiles in Jerusalem and gave a public statement and even a letter endorsing Gentile belief without the need for circumcision, it appears that Peter had not fully integrated everything that he had stated or proclaimed into his daily practice. He still held on to some of the old ways, primarily to save his face. But his actions weren't helping to advance the gospel. They were actually hurting the progress of the gospel itself. And therefore, Paul calls him out for this. So that now that we have this kind of picture of what's going on here, what do we learn from it? What do we learn? Well, we learn from Peter that fear will keep men from living in the freedom of the truth. You see, a man can be told the truth, he can know the truth, he can believe the truth and even communicate the truth. But yet fear will threaten his ability to live in it and live out of the truth. But get this, truth is freeing, giving men freedom when they actually live it out. But men don't live in it because of fear of people, and fear of tradition, fear of the past, and fear of acceptance. And these things are often more powerful determinants of our action, aren't they? And the only way to integrate the two is with the help of another brother who sharpens you, one who is willing to call you out and make you better. But, and this is really important, but when that man calls you out, you have to ensure one thing, that man is inviting you into freedom and not into fear and slavery. And that was the issue here. You see, on both sides of Peter, a man is calling. On the one side, there's pressure from James. On the other side, there's pressure from Paul. Two men, both followers, both influential. But one led Peter toward legalism, hypocrisy, self-righteousness, and slavery. And the other was trying to lead him to freedom, grace, truth, and liberty in Christ. So today, fellas, I want you to listen to the truth, know the truth, believe the truth, and communicate the truth. But I want you to take it one step further and live out of the truth. Don't let fear of people or tradition or the past or even acceptance stop you. Enjoy the freedom that you're given in Christ. And as you do, the way you live will inspire others to live in freedom that they enjoy as well. I love you guys. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this has inspired you. I know it's a little long, but it's good. Share it with someone you know, and I'll see you right back here again tomorrow.